What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Star Wars Battlefront 2 Mythbusters, this time taking a look at some of the hero cards in the game that are often a little bit misunderstood by a lot of people, myself included, as to how they actually work and whether or not they're doing what the card says. The cards I'm talking about are the Fuel Efficiency card for Boba, the Spreading the Disease card for Bosk, Iden's Shock Reach and Acquiring Targets cards, Maul's Lightsaber Defense card, which is the one that I've seen the most misunderstood in my own comments section, Dooku's Blind Spot card, Lando's Welcome to Cloud City card, and Yoda's Jedi Mentor card. All of these cards are sort of questionable as to how they work or whether what they say is actually what they do, and so I thought I'd go through them and test them all to see how they actually work. So getting straight into it, the first one we're going to look at is Boba's Fuel Efficiency card, and this is the card that allows his jetpack to last just a little bit longer. As far as we can tell, this one does actually work, so I'm not so much testing to see if it works or not, but I'm more testing to see the actual difference in the time that you can stay in the air. This first test was without the card equipped, and as you can see, the time you can spend in the air is just under 5.5 seconds, which is actually longer than I originally thought. I then tested it with the card equipped this time, and it came up with a time of just over 6 seconds, and so that does confirm the card does in fact work as it says it does, and it adds roughly 0.75 of a second all up, which personally I don't think is really worth the card slot, but at least the card does actually work. Moving on now to the Spreading the Disease card from Bosk, and this one says that the Dioxis cloud is wider and thicker. Now I'll show both of these on screen at the same time, with the top one being without the card and the bottom one being with the card. To me, the bottom one does look to be a little bit thicker, but as for being wider, I'm not too sure if I can actually see a clear difference or not, so honestly I'm not too sure. Looking at it from the perspective of the other player, this time with the card being equipped on the top screen, it does look thicker, but it's just too hard to tell if it is actually any wider. Now, I also wanted to test what thicker actually meant in regards to this card. Does it deal more damage or does it deal damage for longer? I've never actually been too sure, so I tested that out as well. This first clip is without the card equipped, and this is standing as far away as I can while still taking damage, and it took me down to 182 HP. This second clip is with the card equipped, standing in the exact same spot, and again it does deal the same damage and it doesn't make it any wider than it was. Now, maybe wider literally means wider as in horizontally from the direction you threw it, so maybe that's why it didn't go any further, because as soon as I stepped back even slightly it stopped dealing damage, and so maybe it only goes wider horizontally, or maybe it just doesn't go wider at all. Overall, the cloud definitely does look thicker, but what that actually means I'm not honestly too sure, so I'd probably recommend just not using this card because he does have some much better cards to use anyway. Now, moving on, next up was a few of Iden's cards, and these are the Acquiring Targets card and the Shock Reach card. You can see on the bottom screen the area of effect of Iden's stun without any cards equipped. It kind of goes to that white line marked on the ground right in front of the character. I tested it with the Acquiring Targets card, which reads, Stun Droid has an increased area of effect when searching for viable targets. So I read this as it makes the area of effect for the stun bigger, so I assumed that would make the yellow marked area bigger, since that's the area that Dio can search for the enemies to stun. As you can see though, with the card equipped, it doesn't make the area of effect any bigger, and so now I honestly have no idea what the card actually does. Next, I tested the Shock Reach card, which reads, Stun Droid has an increased area of effect when it shocks enemies, and so I read this one as when Dio has left his shoulder and gone out to stun the enemy, the area of effect of that stun is increased, therefore the yellow marked area isn't actually larger, but the area of effect of the electricity is larger. Now, that is confusing as hell even for me to say, so I understand a lot of you may have no idea what's going on when I say that, but I'll try and explain that a little bit better again. As an example, let's take a look at Palpatine's Chain Lightning. So the ability has its own area of effect, so let's say you're 10 meters away from an enemy when you use L1, it'll hit that enemy with the Chain Lightning. Now, because it can bounce to others, it actually almost has a second area of effect once it's hit the enemy. So if someone is, say, 5 meters away from the enemy that was hit, they aren't in its area of effect, but if someone is, say, 3 meters away, it can still bounce to that enemy even though they weren't necessarily in Palpatine's area of effect, but they are within the area of effect of the Chain Lightning hitting that first enemy. Going back to Iden's stun, the yellow lines that get marked, that is where Dio can locate enemies and then head out to stun them. For example, there might be 2 enemies that are 1 meter outside those lines, but he actually won't be able to stun them if they're not in that yellow area. But if one of those enemies steps forward into the yellow marked lines, Dio can then go out and stun that enemy, and because Dio has then his own area of effect, that enemy who is 1 meter outside the lines will also get stunned as well, even though they weren't actually in the original area of effect. Now, hopefully you guys get what I'm saying with that. It sounded super confusing even to me, and unfortunately there's really no way I can explain it properly on screen either. Getting back to the cards though, the first card called Acquiring Targets mentioned a larger area of effect when searching, and so I took that as it would make the yellow marked area larger. The second card, Shock Reach, mentions a larger area of effect when it shocks enemies, so I thought that would make Dio's area of effect bigger once he's actually out there. Well, looking at this clip, which has Shock Reach equipped, this one actually makes the yellow marked area of effect larger, which I thought was linked to the other card rather than this one. So I honestly have no idea what either of these cards do now. Essentially, Shock Reach seems to just make the area of effect bigger, and I guess the other card makes the stun area bigger. I have no idea whatsoever, but the way I've read the cards, it seems to be completely back to front. Let me know down below if you read those cards the same way I did. I could just be a complete idiot and I'm looking at them the wrong way but where I see it, it seems though the cards are actually kind of back to front. So let me know down below what you think is going on, because I have absolutely no idea. Now, moving on to Maul's Lightsaber Defense card, and this one says that it gives him 16% damage reduction from blasters. The issue is that it has the spin attack icon down the bottom, and a lot of people have tried telling me that this only reduces the damage when he's using the spin attack, similar to the card Luke has. However, as you can see, it does actually give reduced damage all the time. The first clip shows one burst dealing 99 damage, and then the next one shows 83 damage, so this card does reduce the blaster damage received at all times. As far as I know, the reason it has the spin attack icon is either a mistake or it was changed from a card that was linked to spin attack, but either way it isn't only linked to the spin attack ability. Next up we have Dooku's Blind Spot card, and a lot of people think this one increases the lightning stun range. I actually thought that too when it first launched, but as you can see from these two clips, it doesn't actually increase the size, only the angle, meaning it has a wider area of effect rather than a further one. Moving on, we have Lando's Welcome to Cloud City card, and this one is meant to make the smoke larger and thicker. Comparing these two top to bottom with the card equipped on the bottom screen, you can see that this one does actually make the cloud larger. However, thicker is probably up to interpretation. Again, I don't think this card is really worth it, but I've always wondered if it actually does work, and I guess from looking at this, it does in fact work. Now, lastly, taking a look at Yoda's Jedi Mentor card, and this one is pretty much identical to the one we touched on with Maul, however, with only 8% rather than 16%. Again, as you can see, this one does work at all times, rather than only on a certain ability or something like that, and 8% isn't that much, but this card does actually seem to make a nice difference, although I think he probably has some better cards to use anyway. So that is actually going to do it for this one, guys. A lot of kind of anticlimactic results, but some very confusing results as well. So I definitely think I learned a few things about some of these cards, and hopefully you guys did as well. If there's anything I missed that you guys think is worth a mention, or if you think you know what was going on with Aiden's cards, then definitely let us all know down in the comments section. If you are new to the channel, then feel free to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 videos or live streams. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.